GOD rocks.
So I just want to start off by saying the samples that you guys see on the benches in front of you are millions and millions and millions of years old, so they are invaluable. Please be careful with them. They're there for you to look at and enjoy and appreciate, but let's be careful with them, okay? Perfect. So, welcome back to the room. This is the Geoscience section. My name's Dominique. I'm a geoscientist, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about what exactly is involved in geoscience. So, let's start off with a definition. What do you guys think geoscience means? Who wants to give me a definition? Think about the word, geoscience. Go ahead.
What the study is of sciences behind geology.
That's a very good answer. Does someone else want to try as well? Yeah, go ahead.
The science of geo.
Geo, yeah. What do you think geo is?
It's like evolution, fossils.
Yeah, the Earth. The Earth, exactly. These are all really good answers. You can answer the next one. Yeah. So that's perfect. If we're starting up with a definition of geoscience, it's essentially everything that's involved in earth science and geology, the study of the Earth. So that means we're talking about the lithosphere. What do you think the lithosphere is? Who wants to give that a guess?
Ground.
Yeah, exactly. It's everything that is the surface and below ground. That's the lithosphere. And then we have the atmosphere. It's all the gas that you breathe, all the gas that encompasses the Earth around it. Then we have the hydrosphere, all the water that exists on the Earth, okay, and the biosphere, all the life that exists on planet Earth. So, in geoscience, there's important fields of study. There are many, but I'm showing you three here. So I'm showing you an aquifer. Raise your hand if you've heard the word aquifer before. Aquifer. No? Great. So an aquifer, you notice a tap here? So it must have to do with aqua, water, right? So an aquifer is a geologic formation below ground that holds a lot of water. So raise your hand if you've heard of people drinking well water, of a well. Yeah, exactly. So a well is basically a channel that is dug down into a rock layer called an aquifer, so that, water collects in the well and people can pull it up and drink it. So most people on planet Earth actually drink groundwater. They actually drink water that comes from aquifers. So this is a very important study within geoscience. We also have greenhouse gases that are responsible for 2 words. Okay, that's true. What do you know that greenhouse gases are responsible for? That's kind of a big problem right now. Yes?
Climate change?
Yeah, exactly. So the study of greenhouse gases for the purposes of climate change is a very far-reaching field in geoscience. And I don't know if you can see the image at the end, but we're looking at windmills. And so the study of renewable energies for, the purposes of climate change is also a very big area in geoscience. All right, so what is done in geoscience? Why is it even important? What do we do? So we have mining. That's a critical area in geoscience. And from mining, we get all of the technology that we use. When you pick up your phone, the metals and the chips that's in your technology comes from mining. When you want to be iced out like Drake, swagged out, maybe I should have put Kendrick, considering the circumstance. But yeah, if you want to have lots of jewelry, have grills, you need to get those resources from the subsurface, from Earth. Okay, in geoscience, we also study natural disasters to help save lives in mass. So that's, tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanoes. And in geoscience, we also study fossils. So depending on where you're sitting, you guys can look at it after, because I don't think anyone's sitting at the bench that has fossils. But when you look at the sample, you'll see little shells in the rock. And those are fossils. They help explain the history of the Earth. Depending on the area of geoscience that you study, like petroleum, you could have the potential to earn a lot of money. So that's the money calling, depending on what area of geoscience you study. Okay, and speaking about studies, I'm just going to go over a little bit about what I experienced when I studied geoscience. So you guys often probably sit in a classroom, right, to learn and go to school. the very interesting part about geoscience is you're not in a classroom all the time. You actually have to be outside to study the Earth. So I have a few pictures here of my time in the Arctic when we went to study glaciers. So we actually lived on a glacier for 7 to 8 days, and we stayed, in the Arctic region for a whole 30 days just to study the environment there. These are things that you get to do when you study geoscience. So this mountain, have you guys heard of Everest? Mount Everest? Raise your hand if you've heard of Mount Everest. Okay, this is not Everest, but it's Canada's Everest. It's the tallest mountain in Canada. It's called Mount Logan, and that's where we were living and staying to study glaciers. Some other things that you get to do that are really cool is you can go to caves to have class in a cave instead of in a classroom, because why not? So you have a question?
I just think I remember this from last year in agriculture. I think I remember all the photos.
Yeah. So these photos are from my time studying geoscience. And I'm not a student anymore. So just reflecting on the time when I was studying, these are some of the things I got to do. So having class in a cave was for the purposes of studying stalactites and stalagmites. Have you guys ever heard those words before? What do you think they are? Yeah.
There's a cone that they hang down from the cave.
Yeah, and cones that grow up from the cave floor. Exactly. So to study these things, you really have to be there and see it. And if you study geoscience, you get to do exactly that. You get to be there and see it. And that's a glacier behind me that I was studying. Oh, this photo here, that's a meteorite that I'm holding. So it's a rock that we were studying that's not even from Earth. These are things that a lot of people who study geoscience get to do that people who don't study geoscience will probably never get to see. So it's very, very interesting. Yeah. Okay, so now that I'm not a student anymore, let's talk about some of the work that I do from my perspective. Different geoscientists study different things, but I work on a research team where we look for nuclear waste storage solutions. So raise your hand if you've heard of nuclear power, nuclear energy. Yeah, so most of you guys have heard of it. You want to give me a definition? What have you heard about nuclear energy? Reactors? Yeah, exactly. So who else wants to tell me what they know about nuclear energy? You heard about nuclear energy? Do you have an answer at the back?
I've heard about fuel child codes, different ways to use it. We only have so far.
Yeah, exactly. So nuclear energy is really important for the future because it doesn't actually produce greenhouse gas. The only problem with it is that when we're done with the nuclear energy rods, the uranium rods, we have to store it somewhere for the radioactivity to die down enough for it to be safe to go anywhere again in the environment. And to know where do we store it safely below ground, part of the research I do is to help find geologic formations below ground that can hold the waste for a long time until it's safe again to not be radioactive anymore. And specifically, I studied what's called geochemistry. So I'm interested in the chemical structure of rocks. As you guys can see, there's many rocks in front of you, right? Not all rocks are made equal. And that's because their compositions are different. And that really boils down to what atoms are put together in those rocks. How are they put together? What is their structure? That is the kind of things that I study. If you like chemistry, you like big booms, you like reactions, you like sudden changes, that might be a good area for you guys. So overall, that's the end. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand and we can talk about it. Any questions about geoscience, earth science? Yeah, go ahead.
During your time in class and when you were discovering and studying the environment around you, if you found anything new, did you kind of were your studies brought to the attention of the public?
Yeah, so you get to do something called an honors thesis. So when you take a degree for 4 years, usually at the end, well, if you choose, at the end of your degree, you have the option to do research for a year. And some people do very important research that ends up getting published or stored in the university library. And research is essentially coming up with new information that no one has ever known before, right? So by definition, when doing research, you come up with brand new ideas. So yeah, really good question. If there's no more questions, I can show you guys the fossils. Yeah.
How exactly does meteorites and comets work? Are they broken off from planets? Where do they come from?
So space rocks, I guess, have different categories. Some of them are meteorites, which means that they end up on Earth's surface for us to study. And when we study them, we can tell where they came from. So not all meteorites come from other planets. I'm not an expert on meteorites, but I would dare to say that's probably rare. A lot of meteorites that come to Earth were never from another planetary body like Mars or Venus or anything like that. They're just debris that's been in the solar system since the formation, of the solar system, and eventually they get sucked into Earth's gravity and deposited on the Earth. So I'm not an expert, but that's kind of how I would explain it to you.
Is there a kind of geology that studies like maybe rocks in space?
Yeah. So astrogeology is definitely a field, and you get to study the meteorites like what I showed. Yeah, it's really cool. And in that area, you get to learn how exactly did the solar system form. Yeah. Go ahead.
When we were going on these trips, was it like already before, did you have to pay yourself?
So a lot of the trips are inherent to the program of study. So when you sign up for an earth science degree or a geology degree, some of your classes, it's already baked into your classes. Yeah. So this laboratory that we're in, the geo laboratory, is inherent to studying that degree. Yeah. So you get to see all this stuff, interact with these samples regularly. Yeah. Any other questions? Do you guys want to see the fossils? Yeah? Okay, I'm going to go grab them.